Toastmaster comes to us all the way from Dover, New Hampshire. Wow. Now I know what you're thinking, that everybody comes from Dover, right? But he really did. He's a retired orthopedic surgeon and loves to play tennis and tennis. And lo and behold, his favorite athlete is Nadal. He loves to travel as well. I know he's been traveling quite a bit. He's been a Toastmaster of 10 years. In that time, he has served as a past president of Sandpiper's Toastmasters Club. He has also competed in several contests at the club and at the next step, the area level, done very well there. He always brings creativity, enthusiasm, energy to his talks. You'll probably see that today. He is addressing project number 2 in the Competent Communicator Manual, Organize Your Speech. So with a speech entitled, The Magical Triad, please help me welcome Advanced Communicator Gold Competent Leader, Dr. Dave Colton.
Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. How's that, Gloria? Now, before I begin, I'd like to personally thank Kathy for inviting me here to participate in this meeting. I have been a long-time believer that every hospital should have a Toastmaster club, particularly if they have a medical residency. Because when young doctors go out into the community from their residency, the public knows that they have experience and education, and they believe that they should be great speakers. Now, we all know that's not true, because you don't get it by osmosis. It's a learned process, and it takes practice. And doctors, above all, should have it. The worst speeches that I have ever heard have been at medical meetings. True. There are some doctors that don't know how to give how to organize a great speech, how to deliver a great speech, how to entertain an audience, or to leave them with a take-home message. And those are 3 things that any great Toastmaster club will teach you. So I want to applaud you on your Palmery Toastmaster club here, and I hope that you capture many of the residents, because believe me, they really need it. I know when I started in practice, I didn't have it, and I wish I had. I wish I'd been a Toastmaster at that time. So now the speech, okay? If you learn nothing else in Toastmasters, learn this. In public speaking, the triad is magical. Not only in preparing your speech, but in delivering it. It provides effectiveness for your speech. If you look in the basic manual under Project 2 on page 19, all it says is that the average listener can only remember 3 to 5 ideas or facts. So if you're giving a 5 to 7 minute speech, 3 ideas are plenty. But any veteran Toastmaster will tell you that whether you have a 5 to 7 minute speech or an hour speech, whether you have 5 ideas or 15 ideas, if you combine them down into 3, a triad, your speech will be much more effective. And that is the truth. Now, if in any speech, if you start off with the triad, you should be able to capture your audience right away. Now, the problem is, why is the triad so effective? Now, I used to think that it was because the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. But that isn't it. If you do a little research, you will find that the magic of the triad comes from 3 things. P-E-M, power, emphasis, and memorability. Now, what do we mean by that? Power. If you listen to a great orator, you will hear the power of the triad resonating out. Take, for instance, Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address. You could hear the power. We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The triad. General Douglas MacArthur, in his speech, his farewell speech to the West Point cadets. Duty, honor, country. What you ought to do, what you can do, what you will do. The triad. And even Winston Churchill, when he took over in 1940 as Prime Minister of England when they were being bombed by Nazi Germany, he said, all I can give to you is my blood, sweat, and tears. Now actually he didn't say that. He said my toil, blood, tears, and sweat. But the historians, realizing the power of the triad, changed it. That is now known as his blood, sweat, and tears speech. And it's a great one. So that's the power of the triad. Now, it also is a way to give you emphasis and to complete your statements. If you think about real estate, what's the emphasis in real estate? Location, location, location. View, view, view. The triad. If you think about democracy, it's of the people, by the people, for the people. If you think of Christianity, it's the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. And even in humor, what is a joke without a minister, a priest, and a rabbi? And speaking of humor, if you're giving a humorous speech and you really want to laugh, do what comedians do. Use the triad, the first two in parallel and the last as a twist. Now, let me give you an example. I would never, ever, ever want to live in Bakersfield. It's too hot in the summer, it's too cold in the winter, and my mother-in-law lives there. That's the way it works. You set two up in parallel, and the third one you give it a little twist. That's the triad, and it works. And finally, memorability. It's true, the average person only can remember 3 facts. And they'll remember them if you give a little story with them. Now, you all know that in your brain you have one little section called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is for recent memory. It's shaped like a seahorse, that's how it gets its name. And it's my theory that the hippocampus only holds a triad, 3 things. And I know that because if I were to give you a mini mental status examination, I give you 3 objects: a boat, a chair, and a man. And then I would go through the exam. Who's the president? Count backwards from 9, etc. And at the end of that exam, I would ask you, what are the 3 objects? Well, if you couldn't tell me, well, that's a test for dementia. If I gave you 4 objects, we'd flunk 50% of them. So I know it works. And I know it works because when I get up in the morning and I go out of the house, I say to myself, keys, wallet, cell phone, triad. And then I go off and leave my tennis racket. That's the way it works. The triad is important in making your speech and in delivering it. So I hope that the next time that you are composing and crafting a speech, you will think about using the triad because it gives you power, it gives you emphasis, and it will allow your audience to remember what you are saying. And one more point. How many of you remember the 3 objects? That makes my point.